Hey friends, it's Tracy. Welcome to an all-in-one video recap of my 2022 Christmas in July series. Now, I recently did these here on my channel and shared these fun DIYs with you, my community. The timestamps for each project DIY is listed in the description box below. So let's get started and let's share what I did for Christmas in July 2022. Starting with one of these 14-inch wooden circles, come in a pack like this from Hobby Lobby. Also, the truck is one of these chipboard trucks that I picked up also from Hobby Lobby. I got it when they were on clearance for $1.24. I'm giving it a couple of coats of the plaster color chalk paint. Now I'm going to do the faux plaid pattern background that I like to do. I've shared this on several other videos, but what I do is I am using the color of paint I'm using is a dolphin gray. It's a ceramic coat color, and I'm also using my fan brush. I just get some of the paint on the bristles. I'm not getting paint on the entire brush, but what I'm doing is getting about half of the bristles, and then I just go kind of in a stripe pattern where like a faux plaid pattern, just kind of go back and forth there. And once I got finished, I'm like, yeah, Trace, that is a little too bright. And so I go back over it with my Waverly White plaster color chalk paint just to soften it up a bit so it's not quite so bright. All right, so then now I'm going to start putting on my stripes along the side or my border. So I'm using about a 1/2 inch flat paintbrush, and it's the number 12 paintbrush that's in the pack of my favorite paintbrushes that are linked in my Amazon storefront if you are interested in which brushes I like to use. All right, so then once I get all of that done and let that dry completely, then what I want to do is I want to shade it. I love this. It's, as you've heard me say before, guys, the beauty is in the details. And so how I shade is I take that number 12 flat paintbrush. The brown is milk chocolate Americana acrylic paint. I dip half of my brush in paint, the other half in clean water, and I blend there on those blue paper towels. Those are just shop towels that you can get in the automotive section of any like Walmart, any kind of home improvement store, that kind of thing. Okay, so then now what I'm doing is I'm just taking just a paintbrush the size of polka dot that I want, and I am dipping it into red paint, and I'm going in between those stripes. And so I dip the handle of my brush every single time, and that gives me a consistent polka dot. So then I'll just continue to do that until I have this this wood circle all painted up. Once all of that is dry, I will take my fine Sharpie marker and I'll go and just do some squiggles, do some, just some different kind of highlights to it. I really feel that the black Sharpie marker just brings it out, and as I said, you'll get sick of me hearing me say that, the beauty is in the details, and this is just something that I like to do for my projects. I just go around, just give it some squiggles and doodles, and just kind of bring out some different parts of my painted projects. All right, now I'm going to add some paint splatter. I am just using the black paint splatter on this particular background. I take my stiff brush and my stick, and I'm just going across the bristles one time, like the stick toward my body, but that the paint projects onto the background of the painted piece. For the truck, as I mentioned, I picked this up when it was on clearance for $1.24 at Hobby Lobby. And what I'm doing is I'm just penciling out where the tires would be. Then I'm going to paint those black, just black acrylic paint. And since these are chip decor, it does have, they are a little thicker. And so I'm just kind of figuring out where I want the tires to be, the best of what I can see. I could always get like a paint bottle or, measure it out, something a little bit more circle. Probably that would have saved me a little bit more time, but it is what it is. So what I did now is I am giving it 2 coats of primary red acrylic paint, and the paint brand is Americana. It's just my preference. I just like this color of red, and I gave it 2 coats of that. Now I'm going to add some white shading. So I'm just taking a 1/4 inch flat paintbrush and my white paint. I dip half of my brush in paint, the other half in clean water, and then, as I do with all my shaded projects, I blend on a paper towel, and then I just go around the edges of the project. Now the paint is on the outside, closest to the edge, and the blended part is on the inner side, and so that's when you get the color very close to the edge. And the more you do it, the better you kind of get out from it, that kind of thing. So practice. I always try to encourage y'all to do that. Just by shading, it just really brings a painted project to life. All right, so then now I have this 3/4 inch foam bouncer brush. I got it in a pack from Michael's a couple of years ago, and so then that is the size that I want to make the white walls of my tires. So I just dip that, just do that with white paint. And then now I just have my very loved, it's lost some of the bristles. This is what I call my detailing brush, and I'm just going around and making some squiggles of my red truck just to bring it to life. I like to use this metallic shimmering silver paint to add some more details to my trucks, kind of like where the bumper and the windshield is, and just there for the handle. Just try to bring that out, and then later I will go and put a dot of that in the white wall of the tire just to make the hubcap. Okay, here I left this in because I just wanted to show y'all that sometimes I will do some hand lettering and writing on it, and it just doesn't turn out the way that I envisioned in my head. So I'm just using a Posca pen, and I really was not happy with how this turned out, and so then I just go ahead and repaint. I just paint over it because I'm like, I'm going to put Merry Christmas on the sign. So this day when I was painting this, I'm like, yeah, that don't even really need to be there. So I go ahead and repaint that. Okay, so then now I'm using, it's kind of like a maybe 1/2 inch bouncer brush, and I dip that in that shimmering silver paint just to add some silver for the hubcaps of my truck. And I got off a little bit on the front tire, but it's okay. I'm not going to sweat that. So here I just went ahead and repainted that, just painted over that white marker that I did because I really wasn't happy with that. And so yeah, that's what it is. So then now I'm just taking my black Sharpie marker, just going around, just kind of sporadically adding a bit of just black marker just to bring it out a lot. And you can't really see it on camera here, but you can see it in real time. Okay, so then I'm just adding some white splattering to my red truck, and then we're going to work on the sign. Now, I wanted a sign for my door hanger, and I liked the shape, but it was too wide. And so how I rectified that is I said, well, Trace, just cut it down. So I just took my ruler, figured out where I wanted it kind of in the middle there, just take my pencil. Then I'm taking, draw a line just to kind of help guide me. And then I just take my box blade, and I had to score it, a few times. And then I just broke it apart, then now I have 2 signs that are in this shape. And these signs are the Woodpile brand, and they came from nowhere else but Hobby Lobby. So I gave this 2 coats of the plaster color chalk paint, but you can use whatever color you want. This is just what I was into for this particular door hanger. And then I'm going to give it a background. I just use my number 2 liner. This is just the brush that is in that paint set those are just my preference. You can get paint brushes anywhere. You can get them at Walmart, Hobby Lobby, Michael's, Amazon, anywhere. But, people ask me, which paintbrushes do you use? And those are linked in my Amazon store. That's just my preference, but, you can use whatever style you like. Okay, so then now I'm just using a flat paintbrush and just going around and just giving the edge. I did forget to mention earlier on the sign itself, I did that same green, which was holly green. That is the color that I used. On the green, I did paint around the edges of the door hanger as well. And so then I had got the red on when I was doing the border. I got a little of the red on the plaster. So I just took some of the plaster, and once that red was dry, I just went ahead and cleaned that up. Then now I'm just doing some shading with that milk chocolate brown paint, and I just like this look. I just really feel that it gives my painted projects just the definition that I want. And so then now I am taking my number 2 flat paintbrush that is in the paintbrushes set that I do have. Those are my favorite. I do have a paint chart that I will link to as well, that I show you which brushes I use for what, and then I am just going to do some hand lettering. Now, you may have heard me say this before, but I can never say it enough. To God be all the glory, because I wanted to learn how to hand letter, how to paint with a paintbrush, and he gave me the patience and also the talent to go ahead and do this. And so this is how I learned how to hand letter, by practicing. I do have found some free fonts that I will link to as well, that do have like dots on them. If that is something that you're interested in, you can click on those. You can download them for free from defont.com. You can make a Word document or some kind of document where you could practice, or you can use graphite paper or tracing paper to trace the word that you want onto your sign, and then you can practice like that. And that is the way that I learn. So then now I'm just using the end of a paintbrush to make my dots. All right, so then once I get finished with that and all of that is dry, I make sure that my dots are completely dry before I do this next part. And I'm just using my little detail brush, and I'm just going in and putting a little comma or a little swoosh in each of the dot. I really feel that it just kind of makes my word pop. Then once that is dry, I give it some paint splattering. I'm just using black for this. And as you can see, I do cover my area because paint splattering is messy. Once everything is dry, I give it a coat of this varnish. It is my favorite varnish, and that is what I like to use on my painted projects. All right, here are some of the ribbons and trims that I'm using just to make like a messy bow. I just cut off, I don't know, about 4 or 5 inches of each of these ribbons. I also, when you see the finished picture, I was like, it's missing something. Well, it was missing some green. And so I went in my stash and I got some thin green ribbon that, I've had on hand for several years, that I bought after Christmas because, just in case I needed it. That was probably 4 or 5 years ago, and it's still in my stash. I'm such a ribbon hoarder. I'm a craft supply hoarder. Anyway, so it came in handy. So that's why I kept it. I'm just laughing at myself. So anyway, so I am just, putting all this together. Also put some raffia in there. I just tied everything together with my pipe cleaner because I get the tightest hole like that. A lot of people use jute or a zip tie, but whatever you're comfortable with, that's how you can do your messy bows. to glue everything on my door sign or door hanger, I'm using some E6000 glue as well as some hot glue. The E6000 is the permanent hold, and then the hot glue gives it a instant hold. And so then for the bed of the truck, I just put some fine Excelsior, and then I just have some greenery that I'm going to use at the top. I had a piece of that. I stuck that in the bed, and then I'm going to be putting some glittery balls in there. Now to give some dimension for my sign, what I have, this is fun foam. You can get in different colors at Hobby Lobby or maybe Michael's, somewhere like that. It's a little thicker. It's the 5M, which is a little thicker, and so I like this. I'm starting to like this. I have a lot of different colors. I've used it many years ago, and I kind of forgot about it, but I'm like, that might work for some dimension, and it sure does. And so I'm just showing you here how I just cut it. You can, it comes in a big sheet like that. It's pretty inexpensive. And so then if you are like me and like dimension for your projects. All right, so then now I'm going to make a swag for the top of my door hanger. And so then I have just some of this pine greenery that I've had on hand, and also some red and white pip berries that came off of a Valentine garland. A Valentine garland. And so I just took those apart, what I like to do. And so then I'm just, facing them opposite directions. I just wired them together so that it all stays together. I wasn't thinking I should have used a zip tie because the wire kind of became a little loose. And so I kind of struggled with this. So if you don't want your swag to come loose, use a zip tie or use floral tape or something. And so then I just glued everything down. And so with E6000 as well as some hot glue. And then I did take my paper piercer, because this actual board is actually very thin, and so I was able to get my paper piercer through there, just to make 2 holes, and then that is how I attached my bow. All right, so then these glittery balls is something that I had on hand, some red and some white. I wanted some green, but the green that I had was like more from fall, and it wasn't a more holly green. It was more of a muted green, and I was like, yeah, that ain't gonna look too good. So I'm just, adding just some glittery balls just to give them something to stick to. I cut a toothpick in half and then just stuck that in there. And then I just stuck that in the Excelsior, hot glued all of that in, and then, this little sign is finished. For a hanger, I just took some red and white check gingham ribbon that I had on hand, and I just made a loop and just secured that to the back just for a hanger. This sign is pretty lightweight, and so I feel that the ribbon will do just fine. I'm using one of these Santas from the Dollar Tree. Now, I should have, heated up and taken off the brim and the mustache, but I just was going to wing it, and it ended up taking me more time. So if you can get those off, if you want to repaint this, that would be awesome. Anyway, so the first thing I did is I just took my pencil and drew out a face, like where it separated the face and the beard. I'm using the color Medium Flesh. It's by Ceramicoat. It's my favorite flesh color for my Santas. And so I'm just using a flat paintbrush and just going around and painting it the best that I can. But I'm like, oh, this is not really working. But I just took my time and just went with it and just made sure that everything was painted. Now I'm going to give each section 2 coats of the paint. When I get to the hat, I'm using my favorite Santa hat color, which is Barn Red, and just using, I should have used used a larger brush size, but this one was the one that I was using, so I'm like, I just went with it. Anyway, so I'm just painting the sides as well as, the top with barn red. And once I finish that, I'm going to go back. I'm using warm white for the beard, and just using that like for the mustache as well as the beard. And so that's what I'm showing right there. And I kind of had to go on the sides, and then it was getting on the other part. And so I'm like, gosh darn it, Tracy, you should have just taken the time to take those little pieces off the best you can so that you would not have this issue, guys. I was really struggling this day when I was doing this. Anyway, so what you also saw me do was just pencil out the area for his nose. And so then now I'm just going back and just once that is all completely dry, we've reached my favorite part of the video, or my favorite part to any project is the detailing. Guys, you will hear me say many times that the beauty is in the details. And so I love to shadow my projects, and there, different painters shadow different ways, but how I do it, I'm using a 1/8 of an inch flat paintbrush and just going around and just doing some shadowing. I dip half of my brush in paint, the other half in clean water, and then I blend on a paper towel. Then I go around the edges of my painted projects just to give it some shadowing. I'm using the color Light Cinnamon. This is an Americana brand, and what you can see right there is I got too heavy-handed on my shadowing, because yes, I left that in because I just want to share for those of you that like to watch me paint. I do have errors, and I do have to go back and kind of clean up, and I leave this in. I share this with you to say that no matter how long have you been painting, how long have you been crafting, you're still going to have some oopsies or some things that you're like, that doesn't look too good. So anyway, I'm going to show you in a minute how I go back and I fix that, because I do want to encourage anyone that wants to learn how to paint or hand letter or just craft like this. Just take your time, go back and fix it. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the white, just to go around and add some white shadowing to the outside of the hat, as well as I will go back and fix some of the white on that brown where I got a little bit too heavy-handed. I'm going to go ahead and add some white to that so that it blends in a bit more. So like I share, I try to share, I tried to be encouraging, just to say if it's not what you want, then we're going to go back and fix that. Okay, I'm just taking a stencil brush, and I am taking some coral color paint, and I'm just stippling some cheeks on. I like my cheeks more rectangle up and down, so that's why I do that. Then I'm going to draw on some eyes. Now, once this project was totally finished, I wish I would have made my eyes a little bit bigger, but that's okay. This is my first Santa that I've painted this season, as well as one of these that I painted from the Dollar Tree, but I know from now on what I want to do for my next Santa project. So what I do is I like the more almond shape eyes, and so I do that, and then I go back in. I start with a black marker, then I go back in and fill it in with paint. Okay, so then I have a very loved thin liner brush that has been with me for many years that I make some eyelashes. Then now I'm just going back and just taking a brush and just going and putting Santa in some eyebrows. Then I take that very loved liner brush. It's missing some bristles. It's been with me for a long time, like 20 years plus. And I just go and make the whites of the eyes, as well as just add some character for his cheeks. I give him him a little swoosh for his nose. And then we're going to move on to the next step. So I love my black Sharpie marker. It is my best friend. And so I just go around and outline everything just to make my painted projects pop. Now I'm going to move on to highlighting and just taking a number 2 liner brush that is also in that paint pack that I shared earlier. And those are listed in my Amazon store if you are interested. Okay, so then I just go around and just add some highlight. Now I want to share this with you. I've been paint splattering for many years, a long time. And I still get a little heavy sometimes. You can see on Santa's the ball of his hat. I'm like, oh goodness, girl, you got a little too heavy there. So what I'm going to try to do is, because I don't want to repaint this, I'm going to try to take some white and kind of mask that a little bit. And then that was coming on a little thick too. So we were really paint splattering that day when I was doing this video. I share this with you only because it happens to me too. Hey guys, make sure that you protect your area, your cover, your table or whatever, because paint splattering is messy. For my jolly, I'm going to use my paint marker, my Posca 5M, and I just hand lettered Jolly, just adding some happy dots on there as well. I put it off to the side because I'm going to be adding some pine and some homespun fabric to the other side of his hat. Now, I've discovered this Americana gloss sealer. I got this at Michael's, and I use this because for my painted projects that I hand letter with the Posca pens, because they do have a tendency to smear with the liquid brush on varnish. I found this and it works good. They have a matte and they also have a gloss, and I found it at Michael's. Now I'm going to move on to the tag. Now this tag is from the Dollar Tree, and I just took off that bottom part, and then I was going to try to remove the paper, but I'm like, why, girl? You're just going to cover it up anyway. So then I thought, well, maybe I'll use the back, and I used my heat tool to get off those stickers, but I'm just going to cover it up, and I just went with the front anyway. So this is the paper I'm using. This is the pad it came from. It is from the Paper Studio, which is a Habe Labe brand. So what I need to do is, because the paper's not quite long enough, I need to piece it together, which I did with no problem. I used some Mod Podge just to attach the paper, smooth everything out, and then we're moving on and we'll complete this tag. Just turning out so cute. Totally my style. I wanted to add a bit of whimsy to my sign, so I pulled out some rickrack. Now I got this at Hobby Lobby. Just cut it down to size using my Fabri-Tac glue as well as some hot glue, and just putting 2 pieces of the rickrack, one at the top and one at the bottom. Now to attach my Santa, I like dimension, and I like my signs to have some dimension. So what I used is some tumbling tower blocks that I already had painted for a different project and decided not to use, so they turned out perfect for this particular project. So to get my just to make sure everything is nice and secure, I like to use E6000 as well as hot glue to glue everything down. So then my sign is all finished. I I just thought it was finished. I need to make a bow for my Santa. Yes, Santa can have a bow, a cute, whimsical country bow. So I'm using some homespun. Now, I've been getting some questions about where people can buy homespun fabric. You can get that, guys, at Walmart, Joann Fabrics. Hobby Lobby has it. Also, there is a place that I found online called Jubilee Fabrics. I will have a link in the description box if you cannot find it in your hometown because they do ship. Okay, so I just cut off 2 strips of that. I'm also using 3 20mm jingle bells. Now, I got those jingle bells from Hobby Lobby many years ago, but I do have some linked in my Amazon store if you cannot find them. So I'm using some pine. I just cut that pine in half, and then I just have some sisal twine that I made a small bow. So at first I was going to thread on my jingle bells with a pipe cleaner, and I had like a why is this not working? And I'm like, you silly girl, you don't use pipe cleaners, you use wire. So I go back in a bit and take off that pipe cleaner with those jingle bells and use my wire, my thin wire that I like to get from the Dollar Tree in the automotive section. That is my favorite wire right now. And so I'm kind of struggling with this. I'm like, why is this not twisting? Why is this not working too good? And so I kept this in here to share my struggles with you guys because I do. I share this only to encourage you. My projects have a lot of different steps, and I am so grateful that there are so many friends that appreciate it and that leave me the sweetest comments to say that you have learned so much just by watching. It's very entertaining. You shared some of your struggles and your stories with me, and I am so grateful that you are here. So at this point, I'm like, oh, I forgot to put my sisal twine bow in there. So I just kind of tucked it in underneath there and made sure that everything was nice and secure. Now, for the top, I just cut out a circle and then just punched out another circle on the top just to give it just some decoration at the top. What I started with is this red truck gift box from the Dollar Tree, as well as one of the signs that I had left over from Halloween. And that is what's going to be the base of my sign. And so after I took off the hanger, I was going to use some plaster, which is more ivory paint, but I changed my mind and decided to use some white paint. And this is actually chalk paint. It's actually what I had on hand and grabbed that. I'm also going to be using some crackle medium. And so what I did is I gave it a base coat of the white paint. And then once that was dry, I gave this a thick coat of the crackle medium. Now, right here, I'm brushing it on, but in a second, I'm just going to pour it on because I had like a brain lapse in thinking. I was like, girl, put it just pour it on because I like thick on there because I wanted to make some crackles. And I do have a separate video of how to crackle paint. I will link to that for those who are interested. I let my crackle paint completely dry, and then I'm going to put on another coat of white paint. I know it's not going to show up too good on camera, but it gave me the cracks that I wanted to make it look like the snow for the back of my truck. And so then once that, then the camera kind of picks it up a little bit, but I don't know. I just really like this crack look, and it just really gives me what I'm looking for my projects. Now, for the top of this, I'm using this color Agave, which is a chalk paint as well. It was the color that I just decided to use. Now, I'll be honest with you, this was just a tad thick, so I should have watered it down a bit since it is a water-based chalk paint, and I could have got some better cracks, but just kind of went with it. And so I put it on really thick, and so I didn't really mean to do that, but I just kind of went with it. And once it was all dry, and I had my other my other painting on there, it was really okay. So then now I'm just taking a, stencil brush and just kind of stippling on some paint where the agave and the white paint met. That kind of, just gives me that snowy look. I'm also taking that stencil brush and just pouncing on some different, kind of looks like snowflakes or just, some decoration for the background of my board. The next thing I think I do is I will take the end of that brush and just put some white dots. I'm kind of mimicking what the background of the box was, and I'm going to put some snowflakes on there just using my number 2 liner brush, and just going to make this really cute. I use my number 2 liner brush just to make some snowflakes on the background. And then once that is dry, I'm going to take some stickles, which is like glitter glue. It's kind of used a lot in paper crafting, and I have so much of this stuff that left that I'm just really trying to use up. You can find it in the scrapbooking section of the craft store. Anyway, I wanted to give it a bit of glitter, so I'm just putting some of this. I think it's called Stardust is in. So I'm just going over the snowflakes and putting in some, just some color into each of the like dots, just to give it some, iridescent color and just some glitter, glistening snow. That's what I'm kind of going for. The stickle takes a little bit to dry, so I put that to the side, and then now I'm going to work on my gift box. Just take off the edges of it, like for the gift box. Just cut those off so that I can tear and work with it a bit better. Okay, so first of all, I want to tear. I'm actually tearing toward my body, and I'm tearing off this part of the section of the box that says Merry Christmas because I'm going to use that, but I'm going to use it in a different fashion. So I'm carefully trying to tear it away so that it doesn't tear into the portion that I want for the truck, and then it doesn't tear any of my letters. Okay, so I like the ragged or torn edge where it has a bit of the box showing. So I'm carefully trying to go around the letters as close as I can get, and then just tear it around. I'm tearing the box or the portion of this section, toward my body so that I get the ragged, torn edge that I like. I'm going to do the same thing with the truck, just carefully tearing it around the section of what I want to do for the truck. Now, since I did my own background, I'm not gonna, those trees are beautiful, but I had kind of a different vision in mind. So I'm just going around the truck and just tearing it around, and I don't want that bow. So I'm just kind of tearing. I know it's kind of sad, but I didn't want that bow. Anyway, so I'm just tearing around the edge of the truck again, tearing it toward my body so that it gives me the torn, ragged edge that I like. Sometimes I'm right-handed, so I tear with my right hand, and my left hand I kind of help guide it so that it kind of tears where I want it to. And just sharing that because when I did the snowman sign, I got a lot of questions on how to tear the box. So I thought I would just mention that. All right, for the letters, I'm just using my liner brush just to give it some white paint highlight. I just used some acrylic paint for that. I also did like a snowflake in the where the dot of the eye was, then went back and used my stickles, that Stardust stickles, just to give it some more, iridescent highlight. Okay, so then I'm like, oh, yes, I have to put some white doodles around. So I'm just using that same liner brush and just going around and where I want, just giving some doodles around the edges. I like the border, and I just really feel it's part of what makes me what I like and kind of makes my projects pop. So to add some dimension, I'm just using some Jenga blocks or tumbling tower blocks that I get from the Dollar Tree and just adding it to the back of the truck just to, like I said, make some dimension. I'm just using some hot glue just to attach everything. And I wanted to put my truck on first before I put my Merry Christmas on because I wanted to make sure that I get the placement correct. And just doing the same thing with the Jenga blocks, just putting a couple of those on the back of the words so that I can put it on the Merry Christmas, and then I'll glue all of that down. I should have done this before I put my truck, glued it all down, but I completely forgot. Just taking my fine Sharpie marker and just going around and giving it a black outline. This is something I like to do for my projects. I think that it just really makes the project pop and just brings it to life. And so, like I said, I should have done this before I glued it down. It really was okay. It just was a little awkward for me for my hand because I couldn't, like press down on it kind of thing. Anyway, but it all turned out great. And just adding, just some black Sharpie marker, it just makes the project pop and it just really brings it to life. Then I'll go back and add some white, just acrylic paint to the tires just to give them some treads and bring that part of the project to life as well. Then once that is dry, then what I'll do is I'll go back with the stickles, and what I want to do is I want to bring out the headlights, and also I want to just randomly give some stickles, which is that glitter glue, just to bring out just some iridescent or some sparkle to this whole Christmas decor piece. I'll do the same thing with the letters. I just went around and just gave it just some stickles just to make the letters pop. And so that when you kind of see the letters, they kind of glimmer just a bit. Now, for a hanger, what I decided to use is the sisal twine that I got from Hobby Lobby. And what I did is I knotted it about 3 or 4 times, probably 4, just so because of this particular sign had those holes in it. And so I wanted a thicker knot so that it wouldn't, pull through that. And then once I get the twine on there, then what I did is I just took some homespun fabric. I had these strips already finished or already done, meaning I like to rip my strips of fabric off of my homespun, off of the bigger piece, and I like the jagged edge or the ripped edge, and so I just gave it just a small bow on each of the edges. It kind of masks the like where the twine kind of goes through, and it just gives a decorative touch. using some of these things from the Dollar Tree, as well as some other places. I will kind of let you know where all of the supplies came from as I get to it. I'm going to start with this little Christmas box. Now, my son and my grandson had given me my gift in this box, and I said, oh, that is the cutest little snowman. And so instantly I said, I could transform him. So that's what I'm going to do. The base of what I am going to, adhere that to are these two signs from Halloween from the Dollar Tree. I liked the edge of them. They kind of look jagged, and I thought that would look really cute with some snow, faux snow on them for a wintry scene. Okay, the first thing I'm trying to do is get the staples out. They were pretty deep in there, and I've used a couple of different tools, but what helped the best was this upholstery tool. Now, a sweet viewer had shared this with me in a different video. It is linked in my Amazon shop if it's something that you're interested in checking out, but it helps get out those deep staples. I guess they use them in upholstery shops. Anyway, and so now what I'm doing, I'm just trying to figure out how I want my signs to butt up where they kind of, lay nicely together. And so then I have some paint sticks I just picked up at the hardware store like Lowe's, it was probably Lowe's. And so then I'm just cutting off about an inch because they're a tad too long, and if I'm just making this for myself, and so if I were to be giving this away or selling it, I would definitely cover up this back, but it doesn't matter to me since I'm keeping it for myself. Anyway, so I am just hot gluing the sticks to the back of the signs just for stability. Then to cover up like that seam where the signs are together, I just have some of this kind of like filler spackle from the Dollar Tree, and I am just going around and just putting it in between where that where the signs meet, and then also in the holes of the staple. And I should have wet my fingers already, because once I took a baby wipe and tried to clean up a little bit, I discovered that it actually goes on a little more smoother. So I didn't know, like once I painted the crackle technique on it, I didn't know if it would, if the spackle were to adhere to, it and that kind of thing, which it did. It worked out just fine, but I didn't know at the moment. Now I'm just using some buttermilk Americana paint. It's just acrylic paint. I want that to be the bottom layer because that is what's going to show through the cracks, because I'm going to put my this color, then a crackle medium layer, and then navy blue on top. And so this right here is what is going to show through the cracks. So I'm using some crackle medium, and you can get this at the craft store, or I do have it linked in my Amazon store. And so I like to use the crackle technique on a lot of my projects. And so I am just, just putting some here on the board, and then I just take my brush and just go over it. And it's, I kind of take my time with it. I make sure that all of the areas are covered. And one of the ways that I kind of can tell is if I kind of hold the sign up or whatever I'm doing, I kind of hold it up, and I can kind of see if there's like a spot that I miss. Okay, while my crackle medium sign is drying, I completely let that dry completely. And so what I'm doing is I'm working on my snowman. And so I cut off like a bit of the excess of the box. And so then I'm going to start tearing it because, you could see like in the picture, I am going to distress the edges, and it kind of looks to me like some wood. And so it all kind of ties the project together for me. So I'm just taking my time, and I'm going around the edges of the snowman, and where my left hand is, where my finger is, I am just holding that. I'm kind of positioning it there, and then I'm tearing along where I want my tear to be, because that is what helps me guide it, so that I don't tear too much into the actual snowman. And so I just go around and I just tear off as much of the, cardboard that I want. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to distress it with my favorite distress ink, which is a vintage photo, distress ink by Tim Holtz. I'm using my Posca pen in white, the PC3M, and I'm going to show you here. It kind of, just like a paint pen, it kind of came out a little extra on, on the hat, but that's okay. We're going to make it work. I'm just going with it. And so I use my heat tool to kind of set that up. I'll go back over, and doodle up everything with my black Sharpie marker and make everything really cute. I thought he had a really cute face already, so I didn't do anything extra to that. Yeah, just adding a little bit more character. For the winter blessings little sign for my decor, I'm using the bottom of the box and I'm just cutting away some of the excess that I don't need, and to give myself, some writing space. I'm using this Posca pen. It's a PC-5M, which is one of my favorites for little projects like this. And it's like a paint pen, so you have to shake it up and, make sure that you have the ink to come down. And so I'm just hand lettering winter blessings on it. And I'll do that by, just writing out the words and then doing my little happy dots on each end of the letters. It's just something that I like to do for myself. And then for the dot of each eye, I am going to do a snowflake. I'll do the same thing with my sign. I will cut off the excess of the box, and then I'm going to tear around the edges to give it the jagged or ragged edge, or the ripped edge. I want to, I find like tearing it towards myself or towards my body, that is what gives it the look that I want. If I would tear it the other way, it would give it a whole different look. So just, if you like this look, just, play around with it and see the different looks that you can get by tearing your paper different ways, so that, it gives you the look that you want. Just using that same ink in Vintage Photo, I'm just going around the sign with my finger dauber and just giving it some color. And then I'll also do the same thing with a Q-tip. I'll just use that, my ink, and go around the letters just for extra depth and dimension. Then I'm going to use my Posca pen, the PC-3M, and just highlighting the dots of the ends of the letters just for some highlight. Now that my crackle medium is all dry, it will be shiny, but there's no wetness to it. I'm using this blue paint. It is a Deep Midnight Blue by Americana. It's just an acrylic paint, and I work in sections because actually it starts to crack right before your eyes. And so I want to avoid taking my brush and going over it several times. So I try to get as much paint on my brush. I load my brush as much as possible, where I only have to do one downstroke so that I don't go over it. Because I don't know, it just doesn't give a really pretty effect. And once I show you how it all dries, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about, because if I go over it a little bit more, it does tend to not crack as nicely. So now my board is all dry, and you can kind of see it gives it a really, really nice crackle finish. And so then now I'm just going to attach my sign and my snowman, and I want him to be three-dimensional. And so I achieve that just with some little wooden blocks from the Dollar Tree, the Jenga blocks or tumbling tower blocks that you find in the kids toy section. And so I'm just hot gluing those to the back of my snowman. Then I'll glue those to the sign or to my back sign, and then I'll also do the winter blessings as well. And then I couldn't decide if I wanted to use the burlap snowflakes or the white snowflakes, so I was just kind of, you know, back and forth a little bit trying to figure out which ones I wanted to use, because I wanted to use both of them. But since I did the distressing on the snowman and the sign, and this is rustic, you know, I ended up using the burlap snowflakes from Hobby Lobby. I'm using these wintry branches. Now I picked these up at Walmart. They were in the, you know, floral section, and they look icy branches. And so I'm just trying to figure out, how do I want to put them? So then I needed something to stick them into. So I pulled out my trusty Excelsior. It gives, you know, a barrier, something for it to stick to, and also adds a bit of whimsy, which I do like. And so I'm just hot gluing that to the bottom of the snowman, and then will attach the you know, the icy looking branches to the bottom of the snowman. For his bow, I decided to make a bow for like to put where his scarf is, and so to kind of camouflage the redness of the scarf. So I have this 2.5 inch ribbon from Hobby Lobby. It's just a polka dot ribbon, and I'm just making a 2-loop bow, and I use my little tiny attacher stapler to you know, hold it together in the middle. And at first I was going to use this one, this check one, but then I decided, no, I'm not going to use that. So I wrap that back up, put that to the side. I'm using some different trims, and so you know, if you've watched my videos for a while, when I make my little messy bows, junk bows, refab bows, whatever you want to call them, my little bows like this, I like to use a different kind of trims and ribbons, because you know, it just adds just some different texture to your bows. And so I have this you know, these trims. I get my trims at Hobby Lobby, Walmart, anywhere like little trims like this are sold. And so I'll just continue to make my bow. I'm also using some muslin fabric. I don't know if I said that already, but I'm using some muslin fabric that I already had ripped, and just cutting that off in strips. I'll go back later and clean it up once I get my bow done. I'm just using a pipe cleaner to gather it all in the center, and then I will use my needle nose pliers to help get it really, really tight, because I want my bow to pop. And what I mean by that is, like, when I get it really, really tight, it kind of like shakes around and it like perks up those ribbons, because that is the look that I'm going for. And by getting that pipe cleaner really, really tight, I can have that little pop of my bow. To attach my bow, I'm pulling out a bit more of the Excelsior, and then I'll hot glue that to the scarf that's on the snowman. And so the object is, I want to kind of take away or camouflage that redness of the scarf. And then I just use my scissors to trim up any of the ribbon tails that don't lay right. Anyway, so then now I am going to use some all-purpose caulk from the Dollar Tree, and I want to give my snowman some faux snow. And so I'm just using some caulk and a stick, and I want to camouflage some of those or cover up some of those red berries that's on the snowman's hat from this particular snowman. And so I'm just taking some of those frosted branches and more of the caulk and just kind of, putting some of that in there so that it kind of covers up those red berries and stuff. And so then I'll just go around and I'll just add some more caulking, just by just giving it, just some faux snow, just hitting the high areas. I kind of just play with it until I like the look of it, and just continue to add some faux snow to my sign. Then to give it extra glisten, I add some Martha Stewart's fine glitter. And so if you don't like glitter, then don't do this part, but I like to use this fine glitter, and then I go over my caulking just to give it a little of snow glistening. I do the same thing at the top. That's why I liked these signs from the Dollar Tree. They were Halloween signs, and I just liked the jagged edge. It kind of reminded me of, something that you would see like an old picket fence. And so I just take my caulking and just go around the top of my sign, and just around the top of the winter blessings. Also, I am sprinkling on some glitter. I know the camera and the video does not pick up the glistening of the sign, but I love the way that this turned out. I decided just to have it set against like my little setup here. I'm not going to put a hanger on it. My first intention was I was going to put a hanger on it, but I just like it without a hanger, just in my little winter decor setup that I have here. And these next fun projects were part of my craft and chat session that I usually do when I craft live with my community, and I create crafts in real time. I'll chat with you as long as I'm live, and I have so much fun doing these. But for this video collection purpose, I wanted to just kind of hit the high points, just give you the Cliff Notes version of it. Now, this was part of Craft Round the Clock group that I am a hostess in on Facebook. And so we had a theme week. It was grocery trash to treasure. And so what I did is I created one of my country Santas using a wine cooler bottle. I made one of my cute Santas, and also in the video I will show you that I had previously done one just using a megaphone. I had just painted a Santa face on. So in these two projects, I did one country bottle Santa. I did another trash to treasure Christmas craft, and that was using some cardboard and just different things to create a fun Christmas tree. I will leave a link to the original video in the description box if you would like to hear what I'm doing when I was crafting real time, and kind of get different tidbits of what I was doing at that time. So as I mentioned, the Santa is one that I had previously painted last year, and I just never finished it. So I decided to finish it on this session of Craft and Chat with Tracy. So as I mentioned, it was a wine cooler bottle that I had painted. The bottom layer I had painted with a coat of white chalk paint. Then I used the chalk paint in the color crimson just to give it the red color. And then I used medium flesh for just to give the circle for the face. And then to make my beards, I like to use the all-purpose caulking that I pick up from the Dollar Tree, and then I just spread that on just with a palette knife and let that dry completely. And then to give it kind of an aged look, what I do is I water down brown paint, and then I just, brush that on and then wipe off any excess, with a baby wipe. And by doing that, it kind of seeps into the crevices and just gives it the look of, hit and miss on the caulking. Okay, now for the Santa beard, what I like to use is this homespun yarn that I've had in my stash for a long time. A friend recently shared that she did get some last year in at Michael's, and so that is just just sharing a place to get that. Okay, so then I used an old sock for my hat for my Santa. Just put a cute jingle bell on with some greenery and some homespun fabric. Okay, so for Project 2, what I use, as I mentioned earlier, this was grocery trash to treasure. So we were supposed to use something that we would throw away from the grocery store. And so what I did is I used part of a cardboard box. I tore it off to look like a Christmas tree. For the trunk of the tree, I used a paper towel holder. I painted everything up, just, putting my little primitive country touches on it. Used some pip berries, a rusty star, and just some homespun fabric, and just made a cute little Christmas sign. If you would like to see the slower, kind of more in real time version of these two crafts, you can look for the description box, the link in the description box below of when I did do this real time, when I was chatting with my community. And for video purposes, I wanted to just, hit the highlights so that I could put all of my collection video together for my friends that may not have seen the original videos. Country rag tree. Now I know I have seen a lot of these on YouTube as well as Pinterest and then the crafting group, but I wanted to share my version with you, so that's what I'm doing in this video. Thanks for being here. Welcome back if you are returning, and welcome to my channel if you are new. All right guys, let's go ahead and get started. Let me share how I created this primitive country rag tree. Okay, what I started with is this tinsel tree from the Dollar Tree. Now it had like that green tinsel on it, so I just took my scissors, snipped it, on one side and then unraveled it so that I could get all of the green tinsel off. And once that's all pulled off, then I'm left with this form. It's a plastic form, so I don't want to bend it too much because it may either bend or break, but that's what I'm left with. Now there's quite a bit of space in between, like the bottom row into the second row and then to the top row. And so what I decided to kind of close that up a bit and to give me something else that I can attach my fabric on, I have this green wire. It's very pliable. I've had this in my stash. I think I got this at Craft Outlet. But I've seen something similar to this at Dollar Tree. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bend it around and just, attach it so that it gives me an extra like wire to put on my fabric. These are the two fabrics that I'm using, this homespun fabric, and then I had some muslin fabric. I probably got this at Hobby Lobby or something like that. Anyway, I just ripped just sections of these, and then I cut them down to like maybe 9 or 10 inches. I just used my pinking shears. Well, those are what I'm going to use to cut off the excess of the ribbon once I put it on my tree like this. Anyway, so what I did is I just tied little knots on there. And at first, what I did is I wrapped just a piece of the homespun fabric around the bottom ring. And honestly, once I got the fabric on there, my little fabric bows, you didn't even really see it, but it just made me feel better by having that on there. And so now let me show you how I put my ribbon on. And what I'm showing you here is I had put that wire on there, and that's what I tied my ribbon tails, but you can kind of see I'm showing you here with an extra one that I had. I had put an extra piece of wire on there in the middle in between those sections because it was just too big, and I just wanted my ribbons to lay on there like that. So here I'm showing you here, my muslin fabric seems to be a little bit wider, probably about 1/2 inch. So I folded it in half just like that. I went just over that little piece right there, pulled it, and then I took both pieces of the fabric through the opening of the fabric, just pulled it just like that. And then I just pulled a little knot like that. And that's what I did all the way around until I got as many of these on there. And probably I put between 4 and 5, probably, on the larger part of the tree, I put probably 5. And then when I got to, to the top of the tree, I got a little less. And so then this is where I use my pinking shears just to trim off everything so that everything looks even. So let me share what I did where the bars cross. And what I did is I took the next ribbon and I folded it over that bar where it kind of, catty cornered it, and then I did the same thing. The knot was just a tad bigger, but I was okay. By the time I got all of my fabric on my tree, you really couldn't tell, but it made me feel better by covering up that section where the bars meet. And then I just continued with my next piece of fabric until I got all the way around. Then I'm going to work on the next section, and because there's so much space in between those, the plastic bars, I needed to put another piece of wire. Again, I got this wire from Craft Outlet, but I've seen something similar at Dollar Tree, or maybe we can find it at other places. Anyway, so I just wrapped it around the tree and just, made it taunt, or made it where it would not, slide down. There are some small notches or some small grooves in this plastic tree. I guess that's how they, kept the tinsel on there. So it worked great for my wire. So I put another small piece of wire there at the top so that I could put on my fabric strips, and that just turned out really good. I like the fullness of this tree. So then now I'm left with this little section right here. So what I did, there were like 4 different parts of the plastic form. So I just did the same thing. I just, put a fabric piece on there, and it gave me the fullness. So then I was left with just a tiny bit there at the top. So I just took a piece of that muslin fabric that I had left, and what I'm going to do is just kind of twist it on itself. I'm going to hot glue it so that it stays down, and then I just kind of wrap that around the top of the tree. And actually this worked out perfect because my tree topper is one that I got from Hobby Lobby. Now the packaging may be just a little different. They seem to have different, they call it something different, but it's in the mini ornament or the mini tree section there at Hobby Lobby, and I've seen them for several years. But it's perfect for my little primitive country crafts that I love to do with you all. All right, I have some of these rusty jingle bells. Now, I rusted my own jingle bells using the method that my sweet friend Linda from FaithChick777 shared on her channel. I will have a link in the description box below if you would like to find out how to rust metals. I just used her technique and it worked out perfect. Anyway, so I just took some of these jingle bells and also some jute string and just threaded the jingle bell on the jute string, and then now I'm just kind of attaching it to the frame, and then I tied it into a bow, and I really think that it just adds a more country, more rustic feel to this primitive country rag tree. For this project, I'm sharing how I make my rustic Christmas trees. This turned out so nice, and I am just can't wait to decorate my home with it this year. Okay, so what I'm using is one of these wood tree forms from the Dollar Tree, and I am going to give it 2 coats of the pine green acrylic paint. And like I said, I gave it 2 coats, but it's really okay if it doesn't completely cover it because it's rustic. And so I just kind of, just went with it. For the bottom, for the stem, I'm using this milk chocolate paint. So I gave the the trunk of the tree 2 coats of that. And then to add a more rustic, I just took my sanding block that I get these at the Dollar Tree and just sanded the whole tree. And then also I wanted to mention I'm making this where it's 2-sided. I am doing the same thing on both sides. So I painted both sides the same way with the pine green color paint and the brown for the trunk of the tree. I'm going to do some highlighting, and I'm using this color as buttermilk, and I'm going to do some edging around the, or just some doodling around the edge of the tree. I'm not being very precise because I don't want it to be very thick like I usually do. So I'm just kind of highlighting, hitting and missing different parts of it because I think that just kind of adds to the character and the beauty of the tree. So I'll just go around that both sides. I do let one side dry before I flip it over to the other side. And so then once that's dried, then I will give it I'm going to use that same buttermilk paint just to do some splattering. I wanted this tree to stand up like on its own, and to help with that, I just painted 4 tumbling tower blocks. I just painted them the same color of milk chocolate brown paint. I glued those 2 together, and then I am going to glue the first set to the front of the tree. Then I'm going to glue the second set to the back of the tree so that it's freestanding. To decorate my tree, I have this Pitberry and Jingle Bell garland that I got from Joann's. I had it in my stash. I think I got this in 2019, and so I'm not quite sure what they have this year, but I just love it so much, and it's just, little garland and wire. And so I'm just going to kind of wrap it around my tree just to give it, that primitive or rustic country look for my tree. And then I'm not gluing it or anything. I just kind of bend at the wire at the bottom, and then I'll stick it through the hole at the top. Now, to take my tree to another level, I have my homespun fabric, and I rip off just half inch or even thinner of the homespun fabric. I just tie it's not even a bow. I just tie like a knot in it, and then I glue different bows around both sides of it. I decided on some raffia for a bow. I thought about putting a rusty star on there, but since it had the hole in it, I was like, yeah, it's perfect to tie a raffia bow in there. And so the raffia that I use, I get at Walmart in the craft section. I love that raffia. It's just very pliable, like very thin, and it's a very easy to work with that I have found. Anyway, so I just tie a bow there, and then I'll just cut off, the long tail so that it looks nice. And so I just love the way that this rustic Christmas tree turned out. I know I will be making more because this is totally, guys, this is country Christmas to me, and this is how I decorate my home. Okay, here are the supplies I'm using for this cute little nativity setup. I'm using 2 of these blocks from this tumbling tower set that I picked up from Five Below. These are the larger ones. And then these 1 smaller tumbling tower block that is from Dollar Tree. So you can kind of see the difference. And then I have 2 20mm beads that I'm using for Joseph and Mary's head, and then a 15mm slip ball for baby Jesus. Have a piece of burlap. Now, to give the color for the wood, I'm using this antique wax that I'm just going to put it on with my with a baby wipe. Also, so that Mary is just a head shorter of Joseph, I just cut off a little piece of that block just using my saw. I've decided to add 1 more of those larger tumbling tower blocks and paint it with a couple of coats of this plaster color chalk paint. This is going to be just a little sign that I'm going to hand letter on. Once I have all of my little wooden pieces, colored and stained, I have this piece of gingham fabric that I'm going to use for the headscarf for Mary. And so I'm going to have the jagged edge or the ragged edge on, on top of her head. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue these, I'm going to use hot glue and some E6000 so that it gives a permanent hold. And then this is the piece of burlap I'm going to wrap around baby Jesus, and I'm just going to use some sisal twine, a piece of that, to tie it around. For the sign, I have this piece of craft cardstock, and I'm going to hand letter on here, tear the edges, distress them, and then glue it onto the block just to give it a little different look and some texture and dimension. To add a bit of shimmer and sparkle, I have this puffy paint in gold. It's kind of translucent, and I'm going to just put a coat over the sign just to give it a little shimmer. When I picked my beads, I didn't realize that the hole would be showing at the top. I didn't get that a thought. So I just pulled out a piece of this brown fabric. It's kind of like muslin, and I'm going to put that for the head thing for Joseph. And then I'm just going to use some E6000 and hot glue just to glue this together so that it stands just like that. And it's a little cute shelf sitter. Now, if someone wanted to, put a jute hanger on it, it could be easily transformed into an ornament. For my next project, I am making this Oh Holy Night sign. I just think it is has such a statement and it's just so cute. So what I'm using is a frame. I picked this up from a thrift store, but you can get these kind of frames anywhere. I'm also using these letter tiles or like Scrabble tiles. For my background, I'm going to use this ribbon that I've had on hand for quite a while. I had got it at Hobby Lobby on sale. I'm also using a rusty star that I got from Hobby Lobby as well. But they're in my Amazon store are rusty stars if you can't find any like that. Okay, so the first thing I did, I wanted to distress this a bit more, so I'm just doing that using my antique wax and a stencil brush. And then I'm going to trim out the ribbon just to fit on the back of with the frame, like the cardboard backing. So I just trimmed that out and I attached it with my Fabri-Tac glue just to keep everything down. And I chose this ribbon because it was dark. It's like a very, very dark navy, and it has like almost a wool texture to it. I'm not quite sure if it's still available, but I just love it so much for this piece. And so I just put it back in the frame there, and then I'm going to measure out how to, how I want to lay everything out. And so I try to figure out how I want to lay it out for the frame so that, it's all nice. So I put down my star first, and then I'm just going to lay out my word tiles, or spell out the words that I want. Like I said, I got these from Walmart, and a tip that I've learned that they're blank on the back, so if you don't have a letter, you can always write the letter you need on the back of a letter that you don't use. And so like for the trunk of the tree, I'm using a Z because a lot of the words that I spell out, I don't need a Z. Anyway, so that's just a tip for you. So I had just laid all of the letter tiles out first, and then now I'm just going back and hot gluing everything so that, you know, everything is secure. Okay, I'm starting with a 14-inch wire frame, and this burlap 21-inch mesh is from Craft Outlet. I attach it at the top, and then I go across to the bottom. I like to add my mesh like this because when I put my signs on, I feel that it gives me something, you know, in the middle for it to hold. And so I start in the inner ring, and I put 8-inch poofs around there, and then as I come around and I get to the top, I just untwist that one so that it's all, you know, connected together, and then I'll just continue. And usually, like where the wire or the bar is across, that's usually where I put my pipe cleaners. And so for this first layer, of the 21-inch mesh, I'm putting 12 pipe cleaners. Then when I get to the, you know, connect to that end there, then I will drop down to the outer ring, and I put my pipe cleaner around 2 bars, and I will make my poofs probably between 9 and 10 inches. I will end up putting 12 pipe cleaners, and then when I get to the end, I just cut off with my scissors. Now, for my next layer, I'm using 4 10-inch mesh. 3 of them came from Hobby Lobby. The red and the green window pane mesh came from Craft Outlet. And so then here I'm showing you the 2 sets that I'm going to put together, the black and the white, and the red and the green, and then I will put this red and white and the craft color together, and I'm going to make 6. I'm going to cut 6 of each of these to make 12 bundles total. And so I roll out these together. I just use my rotary cutter and cut them at 12 inches. And so I will cut 6 of this pattern. Then I'll move on to the black and white and the red and the green and cut 6 of those as well. And then I will make cruffles and put them into my wreath. So how I make my cruffles is just rolling it 2 times, clipping it, turning it, around, go on the other side, clip it. Then I gather it in the middle, make like a ruffle or a cruffle, and then I cross them like in an X pattern, and then I clamp them with some clamps that I get from the Dollar Tree. Now I have 12 pipe cleaners on here, and so what I'm showing you is that I have one on the inner ring and one on the outer ring, and I get questions about this because people don't know, where do I put this? I put one on the top, one on the bottom. Then the next I'll do opposite. I'll put the other one on the top and the other one on the bottom. So I alternate back and forth in a zigzag pattern, just to, alternate them so that they're not side by side the same one. Get this mesh on, I will have 12 sets of the 2 Deco mesh on there. And so then now what I'm sharing is because the pipe cleaners are kind of, one on top of the other, I have what I consider holes, 6 holes in this Deco mesh wreath that I'm going to cut 6 of these white snowball mesh and make cruffles with them as well. Then I will just take pipe cleaners and just go in between that Deco mesh where I consider the hole would be. And sometimes it's, easier if you make it and then you see what the person is talking about rather than having to describe it. I hope that makes sense. But, when you're looking at the wreath and you put your Deco mesh on, and, in this pattern, the way that I'm sharing, then, you can kind of see where the holes are. And then that's where I include this white Deco mesh wreath. And I did it the same way. I made my cruffles. And, so then I am just, going through the middle and just attaching it with a pipe cleaner. And then the white I like to use for my 6 extra ones that I put in the holes. I like to use a coordinating color that's opposite or that has a coordinating color to bring it out and make it pop. Are the ribbons that I'm using in this wreath. I like to use 3 different sets together so that I can alternate them in the coordinating colors. And I like to have a set that I use 3 2.5-inch ribbons, and the black and white came from Michael's. The red and white dot came from Hobby Lobby, and the gnome wreath, or the gnome ribbon rather, came from Walmart. And so what I like to do is I just help myself by streamlining and getting my ribbon bundles together, so that way when I'm ready to put them on my wreath, all I have to do is grab and go. And so one thing that really helps me is putting a teeny tiny staple in them to keep them together. And this stapler is in my Amazon shop. Yes, I have gotten questions. You can use a regular staple. It's just a little bit bigger. I like to use a small one because it's teeny tiny and I don't even know it's there. Anyway, so then this next set is the red sheer ribbon I got from Walmart, and that black and white buffalo check and the craft came from Hobby Lobby. This sparkly with the red, the 2.5 is from Sam's Club. I think I got that. And then that white with the red cute check on the edges is from Walmart. And so I'm just kind of showing you there how I insert my ribbon together. Now my 2.5 I cut at 13 inches, and my 1.5 ribbons I cut at 12 inches so that they would lay a little bit better. All right, I also made just some raffia bows that I'm going to be putting in one set of the ribbon, and it looks like I put that in the red ribbons. And so this is why I like to have my ribbon bundles ready to go, and I start somewhere, and I just put in my ribbon bundles, and then I alternate up, down, up, down, up, down in a zigzag pattern until I get all the way around the wreath. That way I don't have two ribbons next to each other. And, everything is sporadic and, looks really cute and ties all in together. And how I usually pick my ribbons is depending on the season, and also a lot goes with my sign. And so since I was using this Gnome sign, it has a black and white buffalo check. It also has the red present and the green ribbon. It also has some green, like his little boots or shoes has some green. And so that's kind of how I pick my ribbons and how I pick the coordinating colors. One thing I also do is once I put my ribbons in my pipe cleaners, I trim them off, and then I twist the pipe cleaner down and give a dot of hot glue to seal it, because I do feel that it gives a little bit extra protection for my wreath. So again, I based everything off of this cute gnome sign that I got from the Dollar Tree. Now, it's already cute, but what I like to do is kind of add some embellishment, some outline, some highlight, just to bring out a little bit more of its character. And how I do that is just take a fine Sharpie marker and just go around the edges. I'm not being very precise. I'm almost doing like an outline or a border. Now, when I get to the beard, since it's glitter, you can't be very solid, so I just kind of hit and miss there on that glitter. But the others, I just kind of go around and just kind of give it some enhancement just to bring it to life. And then I'll do the same thing with some white paint and my number 2 liner brush, just going around the edges and like the present, his shoes, his nose, just to kind of bring it out and give it more character. I am an old school country crafter. I love me some paint splatters, and I make sure that my table is covered because paint splattering, it does get messy. And I use a stiff brush as well as a small stick, and you could use a toothbrush if you would like as well. And I just splatter with black paint, and then I'll go back over it with white paint. And this cute gnome is country cute now. So to once it's dry, then to attach it to my wreath, I use these 1-inch cable ties. I have them linked in my Amazon store if that's something that you're interested in. I just use some E6000 and some hot glue just to attach the holders on the back. And so then what I do is I attach it to my frame so that my sign is secure. All right, to bring the green out in this gnome, what I'm using is this pine, and this came from Hobby Lobby. I just cut off sprigs of that, and then I attach it in between the wreath. I attach my embellishments. I make sure that I get like in the flaps so that everything is nice and secure. I like to use Gorilla hot glue sticks and just make sure everything is secure by getting in between those Deco mesh flaps. I'm also going to add some pip berries. Now, these particular pip berries you can get all year round in the garland section at Hobby Lobby. They come on a strand, and I just take off, I untwist them off of the strand, and then I use them individual picks in my wreaths and my other crafts. And I just love them so much. It just really makes my primitive country heart very happy. Okay, this is going to be my cute Santa that I made as a wreath attachment for this cute wreath. Now, what I'm using is an ornament from the Dollar Tree, as well as a Santa hat, the buffalo red and black check, and the faux fur is from Hobby Lobby, and the 1 3/4 inch balls are from Hobby Lobby. I got those on sale a couple of, a few months ago when they were, clearancing out some stuff. Anyway, but they are, smooth on one side so that they will fit nicely on my Santa. Okay, so for the little tag, I'm just using my heat tool just to get that tag off. I'm not painting it or anything because the fur is going to cover everything up. And so the first thing I do is just kind of smooth out my fur, just kind of position it on my ornament where I want it to go. I'm kind of just, arranging my hat, just kind of see where I want to lay everything before I glue it down. I'm going to want my beard to have, like a beard shape where it angles down. So I'm just kind of, was folding it down just to kind of get the shape that I wanted before I cut it off. Now, I had just, bended it over, and I'm using my box blade, and I'm just taking my marker and just marking where I want to cut the felt. And the object is to cut the felt and not go all the way through to cut the cut the fur actually itself. So I'm just taking my time. I'm going through and just an X-Acto knife or something else that might work, but this is just what I had on hand, and I'm just trying to cut through the fur and not like I'm trying to cut through the felt and not cut the fur to give it a choppy look. So I'm gluing my hat on now, just trying to figure out how far I want it down. I'm just using some stuffing that I got, from Walmart, something like that. An old sock would work, plastic bags, old rags, something like that. But this is just something that I had on hand. And I just kind of put some, I wanted that to give it a little bit of form. And so then now I glue on my nose, and I did that first because I wanted to ensure that I had the right placement before I glue on my beard. And I want my hat to kind of go down over the nose, and this is a 1 3/4 inch wooden ball that was flat on one side, and so I just want to make sure that everything is nice and where I want it to be before I glue everything down. For the top of my hat, I'm just bending over the tip of it and just kind of fluffing out the ball of the hat. I have two 30mm rusty jingle bells. Now, I had these on hand. I know that, Amazon has you know, Jingle Bells, and there's other places that you can find them. I just have some wire that I just threaded them through and just tied them to the ball of the hat. I'm just kind of positioning it so that they are, you know, toward the top. And so I just have one of these garland ties that come from the Dollar Tree. I had it on hand. Everything that I'm working with is something that I had on hand from previous years. And so anyway, I had just cut a strip of muslin fabric and just tied it around the hat. And just now I'm just fooling with it just to kind of get my bells and my fabric, my garland, everything, you know, positioned on the top. And then what I do is I glue it down there so it stays nice and, you know, stays in spot, you know, or stays in place right there. And so, now, you know, this is just the back of it. I'm just kind of taking off the fuzz. And anyway, so, I'm looking at it because I'm like, yeah, that beard's a little bit too long. So I end up a little bit, before I attach it to the wreath, I end up cutting it a little bit more. Now I'm going to start on the wreath. I'm using an 18-inch wire form and these 3 10-inch Deco mesh. The wire form is from the Dollar Tree and the Deco mesh are all from Hobby Lobby. And I just roll them out. I roll them all 3 at one time. Everybody has their own, or each wreath maker has their own way of doing things. And I'm cutting these at 12 inches and I cut all 3 at one time because I'm going to put all 3 of them together and put them into or tie them onto the wreath. I actually made 24 bundles of these 3, and I'm just using the curl or cruffle technique. And how I do it, I just, you know, bend over the ends. I clip it with a little clamp that I get from the Dollar Tree and clamp that like that. I do each one of these the same way, and then I'm just going to layer them, crisscrossing them, make like an X pattern or you know, a star or something like that. And you know, so, and then I tie all 3 of these on the wreath, and like I said, I made 24 bundles. I just use some pipe cleaners and just attach them to the wreath form. On this one right here, I put the pipe cleaner on the inner ring, and then I go on the outer ring, and then I go on the inner ring. And so that I kind of stagger it. And so that is kind of how I make my wreaths. Just kind of tie those on there like that. And the clips from those blue and white clips, I get from the Dollar Tree. I find them in the laundry section, and I love those clips, clamps, or whatever you want to call them, because they open very wide, and they help with streamlining and you know, help just kind of hold things together, so that they kind of act as an extra pair of hands for me, or extra fingers. And I am all about convenience, I tell you. So I just love how full and how just all of this, I just love all of these different colors together. And because the Santa, you know, was so big, I ended up using the 18-inch wire frame, and I'm so glad that I did. These are the ribbons I'm using in this wreath. The first 3 came from Hobby Lobby. The Merry Christmas burlap came from Sam's, and the red and black buffalo check I've had on hand for a couple of years, and that came from Dollar General. And so I cut these at 13 inches using my Perfect Tails ribbon helper. It kind of helps me with, you know, twisting my ribbon around it, and then I can cut it all at one time, and then I dovetail it what I want. So what I'm showing you here is I put these 2 patterns together, and I help myself by kind of get my bundles together. I just put these 2 together, and then the other 3 I will make that a bundle. I use my tiny attacher, my little stapler. It is just a handy little tool that I use in my craft room that helps with my bow making. since I have 24 bundles, I need 24 bundles of ribbon. So I have 12 of each. And so for these 3 right here, I'm just making a bow with some raffia because I'm going to put that in the middle of that. And that is what I am, the raffia, that's what I'm putting in those bundles. And I just trim off, the excess and just hit it with some hot glue to kind of seal the middle of the where the pipe cleaner goes. And for the these larger jingle bells, I got these from Hobby Lobby a long time ago. I don't know what the millimeter is. It doesn't say it on the package, but they're large jingle bells. They were in the miniature ornament section, and so I'm going to put these jingle bells in the middle of with the burlap Merry Christmas and the window pane ribbon. And so it was 6 of these jingle bells in this package. I've had them on, like I said, I got them when they were clearancing out all of their stuff, many years ago. I pick up this kind of primitive country stuff, and so I had it on hand, so I am using it for this wreath because I think it just all ties everything together. So my point is, just be on the lookout, even at thrift stores, Goodwill, yard sales, marketplace on Facebook. People are always clearancing out stuff. And, check Amazon. They may have some of these large jingle bells. So I just alternated on the just put the ribbon bundles in the top and the bottom, and then I just trim everything with my little scissors and fluff everything out. And so I just love this. I just love the whole country feel of this wreath. I'm really happy the way that it turned out. And so I always try to, fluff my ribbons out so that they're not stuck underneath. Okay, so then now I'm going to put on my Santa, and I'm like, yep, that beard is a little bit too long. So I go through the same thing again, just using my box blade and just cutting off, the felt and just kind of tearing it as I go, not to cut the fur itself so that it still is a good. Attach my Santa to the wreath, I'm using these cable tie mounts. Now these are listed in my Amazon store. I will have a link to that in the description box below if you're interested in these things that kind of help us attach these signs to our wreaths if you don't have, if they don't have holes in it. And so they are sticky already, but I like extra glue to give it extra bonding because I don't want my signs to fall off. And so I just use E6000 and as well as some hot glue. So just using the pipe cleaners, I just threaded it through the mesh back to the frame, twisted it around the wire frame just so that everything is nice and snug. And then I'm just making sure that my Santa is where I wanted him to be. Now, guys, I'm going to put a note on this that I would not recommend this to be in the weather elements because of the fur, because with weather elements it gets all nasty. Anyway, I would just have it for inside use. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is I have this pine, and it's faux pine. I've had it in my stash. It had a Hobby Lobby tag, so it's probably something I got last season. This silver thing right here, this is a stem cutter I got from Deco Exchange. I will have a link for it it's an affiliate link that I'm going to list in the description box below if you're interested in checking it out. I had used some birthday money this past year to purchase it because it just has made my life so much easier. It's a like a wire cutter, but I can just use it right there on my table, and I don't have to struggle with my wire cutters. Anyway, so with this pine, I had cut it all down nice, and so I used my steel picks machine to put a steel pick on the end of it, and then also my hot glue. I like to use the combination when I'm using putting it in Deco mesh wreaths like this, because it makes everything nice and snug. And if you saw my son's hands, he was in my room hanging out with me. I love that time like that. He was giving me his suggestions of where my holes were, and so I really appreciate it. Okay, friends, if you haven't made it this far, thank you so very much. I greatly appreciate you being here and watching and supporting my craftiness. Here are a few more videos if you would like to check out other things that are on my channel. If you click on my picture, you can subscribe to my channel and we can become great friends. All right, we will talk to you in the next video. God bless you, and we will see you very soon.